chair feels funny. It's like it's bigger. Leaning back bigger.
All right, recalling this meeting to order.
Are you recording?
Mr. Mayor, the following came to we would request to add an item to the closed session agenda. Pursuant to, well, let me read this. The following item came to the attention of city staff subsequent to the posting of the agenda for this December 7, 2021 meeting. Pursuant to Government Code Section 54954.2, staff is requesting that the council take action to add this item to the agenda. It is to amend the agenda and add closed session item number 3 as follows. Pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.9, subsection D, subsection 2, the council will meet with the city administrator and city attorney regarding potential exposure to litigation, one case.
Mr. Attorney, can we amend that to 2 cases?
You can add 2 cases, provided the council approves it. It's got to be approved by a 5/7 vote of the council. It does require a motion and a second to be added, and again, it does require 5 affirmative votes to add to the agenda.
I move that we add those 2 agenda items to the closed session agenda.
I'll second that motion. In the blind.
Motion carries with 7 yeses and 0 nos.
Okay, so item number 3 has been added to the closed session agenda, and Jackie, I'll get you the language. Now we can, Mr. Mayor, now it's appropriate to reconvene to closed session.
At this time, we will reconvene to closed session.
Everything's good.
Possession is 9/10. Well,
Testing. Okay. Thank you. All right.
Welcome to the Oroville City Council meeting of December 7th, 2021, where we are reconvening from closed session where direction was given and no action was taken. Will you stand with me for the Pledge of Allegiance? Looking for a motion to adopt the agenda?
I second that.
Motion carries with 7 yeses and 0 nos.
And with that, we'll move on to presentations and proclamations. Item number 1 will be a presentation of a gift from the Retired Judges of America.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor Reynolds, Vice Mayor Thompson, members of the City Council of Oroville. On behalf of retired Judge Darrell White of the Retired Judges of America, I stand before you tonight to present to you the Harlan Bible. Judge White, upon hearing of the first in the nation decision by the City Council to declare Oroville as a constitutional republic sanctuary city, he wanted to gift the city of Oroville a copy of the Harlan Bible. The original was presented to the Supreme Court of the United States of America by Justice John Marshall Harlan in 1906. But before I go any further, I want to clarify that the Harlan Bible is actually the Holy Bible, the Word of God, the Word of the Lord God Jehovah. And I chose to take a portion of Scripture, and I wanted to share it with you because it deals with leadership. It deals with kings and priests and leadership. It's found in Deuteronomy chapter 17, verses 18 to 20. It reads like this. This is speaking about in the future, the Israel would have a king. And it says this, and it shall be when he sits upon the throne of his kingdom, that he shall write upon him a copy of the law in the book, which is speaking about God's word, that which is before the priests, the Levites. And it shall be with him, and he shall read therein all the days of his life, that he might learn to fear the Lord God and to keep the word of his law, his statutes, and to do them, that his heart be not lifted up above the brethren, and that he turn not aside from the commandments to the right or to the left, to the end or for its purpose, that he may prolong his days of his kingdom, he and his children in the midst of Israel. Justice John Marshall Harlan gave the Bible to the Supreme Court of the United States in 1906. It has become known as the Harlan Bible, and it is maintained today by the court's curator. The Harlan Bible's flyleaf pages have been signed by every justice in succession shortly after taking the oath of office. Therefore, for almost 100 years, every justice in the Supreme Court of the United States have signed and made comment regarding the Harlan Bible. Since 1958, May 1st has been designated as Law Day. Therefore, on this Bible that is being presented, the date is May 1st, 2021. It states that the special day of celebration of America to celebrate our liberties and reaffirm our loyalty to the United States. By statute 36 U.S.C. 1:13, it is set aside to cultivate respect for the law. Judge White wanted me to make note of this, and I believe it's very important. Since 1986, products originating from California must contain the state's Proposition 65 warning a warning label. It occurs to us that the Harlan Bible should carry a comparable warning label. Tracking Justice John Marshall Harlan remarks issued in 1906, shortly before he dedicated the Bible to the Supreme Court of the United States. This is what he said. By the way, in my reading about him, it was said that he went to bed every night, one hand on the Constitution and one hand on the Bible, and he refuted that, but that's how much he believed in both of those documents, the Word of God and the Constitution of the United States. This is what he said: I believe in both the Bible and the Constitution. I believe that the Bible is the inspired Word of God. Nothing which it commands can be safely or properly disregarded. Nothing that it condemns can be justified. No civilization is worth preserving which is not based on its doctrines or teachings of the Bible. No nation that habitually ignores or violates the rules prescribed by it for the conduct and government of the human race can last. And so, Mr. Mayor, I'd like, on behalf of Judge Darrell White, retired Judge Darrell White, and the retired judges of America, present this Bible to you as the mayor and to the city of Oroville. God bless you.
Thank you, Pastor Legata. Really appreciate that. What an honor. As he stated, this Bible is signed by all of the Supreme Court justices, all, no matter of political affiliation, they all signed it since 1906, and that says something. So really appreciate that. Thank you. The city accepts it with humbleness. Thank you. Item number 2, presentation from Brian Wong regarding the Oroville Dam relicensing.
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, council members, fellow Ovillians. As a board member of the Chamber of Commerce, I was tasked to look into the recreational needs as it relates to the recreational settlement in 2006. I am presenting with Sarah Nolan tonight, and Sarah is the same age as my daughter, Forrest. Sarah was like about 4 years old at the signing of this document.
Here are some current photos that are on DWR's website showing what Lake Oroville Recreation is supposed to be looking like. Yet here are the current realities that we're currently facing with the water levels at Lake Oroville, and which are currently affecting all the recreational realities. Here's another look overlooking the Enterprise Bridge on the South Fork. As you can clearly see, there is no water. Many faced over the reality of this course of summer that our recreation was cut short due to the ramps being closed on both facilities, Bidwell and Lime Saddle.
So a little bit of history about the recreation plan. It was started in the 1950s as part of the State Water Project. In 1989, local groups informed the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, FERC, in San Francisco that DWR did not build out all the recreational facilities in the approved plan. And at that time, DWR acknowledged that the recreational plan was not built out and submitted a revised plan for approval. In 1990, DWR filed the revised plan, which did not provide for any new recreational facilities or programs due to much lower demand than projected. Interventions were filed with FERC by the Chamber of Commerce, the City of Oroville, lots of local groups, as well as citizens, charging that DWR never built the facilities to attract the demand. Going back to the current agreement that was signed in 2006, so this is like under the highlights for the agreement for licensing published by DWR. The numbers are small, you can't see it, but it says over a 50-year period, $438 million should go towards recreation. So if we did some simple math, what it means is like about $9 million per year should be invested in recreation. This has not been approved by FERC yet, and DWR has operated the dam on a yearly license since 2006.
So here's a current report that was given. This was from 2006, and then also the updated version 2017 after the Spillway Incident and the failure. FERC required DWR to engage an independent forensic team to go over the findings, over the results that occurred in 2017. And in summary, they concluded that the Oroville Dam Spillway Incident was caused by a long-term systematic failure of the California Department of Water Resources. On this slide is the action panel and some of their findings. In the following slides, they also make the current suggestions. FERC Action After Plan, it suggested that the recommendations is now evident that the problem with the Oroville Spillway chute slab had been an ongoing since the project was commissioned in 1967. There appears there to be a lack of critical thinking in the implementation of the owner's dam safety program. This job became an administrative task, and after several years of successful, trouble-free operation, even though the operational conditions did not come close to the upper limits of the occupational capacity.
So I sat in the latest meeting of ORAC, the Oroville Recreation Advisory Committee, and my opinion was that it did feel very administrative. It was 4.5 hours long. No clear objectives were stated, no clear directives were communicated, no clear metrics were stated to measure the success or failure of projects.
And then here is the present impact on recreation. We have had numerous fires over the course of the last few years, which displaced a number of peoples and wildlife, which has caused the Plumas Furnace watershed to burn. On the next slide here is a picture of DWR's website showing and updating the current impacts on the drought and flood cycles we are currently facing. And then on the following page here on the slide, here's the climate action plan stated again by DWR. They say that their action plan does not address any climate changes impacts on recreation, and no further search results were ever found.
After this research, I am recommending that the City Council move to conduct a new recreational needs analysis for the still not enacted settlement agreement that was signed in 2006, with the following considerations. 1, the lake level will fluctuate greatly due to increased demand for releases for a growing California population. Our population has more than doubled since the dam was put in. There's a drought and flood cycles that we're currently going through right now. And then there's numerous releases for endangered species, releases for saltwater protrusion into the delta, and the loss of trees and vegetation in the watershed from the fires will also cause great fluctuations in the level of the water. 2, the cost of the projects in the agreement was estimated based on 2006 cost estimates. Would the same size and scope of projects be achievable under current cost structures? 3, Under the current agreement, certain proposed projects would be underwater during high usage months in the lake. What's an acceptable return on recreation investment versus trying to please everyone, thus not being able to reach certain recreation goals, thus not triggering higher levels of funding, thus creating a sentiment of empty promises or being gamed as expressed by the local community. 4, since 2006, the community has not been able to realize the promise of recreation projects, which would have equated to an annual investment of about $9 million into local recreation. Should these losses be addressed? 5, the 2017 Spillway Incident was a detriment to recreation directly attributable to DWR as stated in the IFT and FAAP report. 6, the current plan was formulated in the 1950s, revised in the 1990s, and signed in 2006. Is it a safe assumption that recreation needs are still the same today? Do we reformulate the plan to address today's recreation needs and build future projects to address the needs of the next generation? Alternatively stated, do we want the current backwards-looking plan or develop a forward-looking plan that may include components of the old plan? Thank you. And we have Sean from the Feather River Recreational and Parks District to give his opinion as well. Thank you, sir.
Good evening, Council. So I am here in support of Brian Wong and the Chamber's considering a need to revisit the settlement agreement. Our district is of a similar opinion, and we would support any city review of a new recreation needs update. As Brian mentioned, a lot has changed since 2006, and if you look at the supplemental benefit fund, the plans for that fund compared to funding for lake recreation, it's like $50 million for the supplemental benefit fund compared to hundreds of millions for the lake. And if you look at the needs of recreation in this region and the city itself, I think it's more relevant to the waterfront, the Feather River next to downtown Oroville. So perhaps some of that funding from the lake could shift down to where I think it's more needed next to the city, providing more recreation that's accessible to the community, economic development and tourism, and a thriving community. So I'm available with Brian as well if the city would like to consider any sort of committee to look into this matter. So
Thank you.
thank you. We also have Robert Bateman's with the Feather River Recovery Alliance, and he'll speak just a minute on some safety issues with the lake.
Thank you, Council, for listening to us. The Feather River Recovery Alliance was started after the Spillway Incident, and we had a petition to FERC with 6,500 signatures, and to hold the DWR accountable. Since then, we've been intervening with FERC, and some of you will have seen some of the work we've done. That's one of them, and if anyone wants to read that, it covers the safety issues and indeed the recreation issues quite well. We've more or less come to the right conclusion, I think, about what needs to be done on safety. But recreation, there's still quite a lot of confusion about what's the best step. We know that the Department of Water Resources and the Natural Resources Agency is going to consider the relicense in the beginning of next year. And in the past, Oroville has been quite divided. Now, I think we've got things straight on safety, but I don't think we have on recreation. And there may be different views, and the DW in the past has played one lot off against another. And I think it's very important that there is a unified view of what's needed on recreation. And I think Brian's got the right idea, and he's going about it very sensibly. And we certainly support what he's doing, and we'll give all the help we can.
Thank you. Really appreciate the presentation, and we can discuss it in detail later. We actually deal with council, some of us are on committees that deal with this all the time, so we're very familiar with your presentation, Mr. Wong. Councilmember Smith?
I just want to thank Brian and Sarah and Mr. Bateman and Sean. Thank you. Great presentation. I think really helping the community grasp hold of the overall concept, because this is an intricate and a somewhat complex issue, lots of layers, as we know. But a piece just I'd like to add, because as some of you might know, I'm kind of have a vested interest in this topic, and that is that the state claims that we have 1.2 million visitors a year that visit our community. And of course, that means revenues, that means dollars, that means people spending money at your business. And drilling down into that data, what I found is that the lion's share of those visitors aren't so much up at the lake, but more in other parts of what we call the state recreational area, the after bay, the forebay, the middle forebay. We have the aquatic center. We have the river that runs right through the heart of our town. It's beautiful. And that attracts a lot of people. And the other piece that we find, I think, within the business community is the Chamber of Commerce board, I might clarify, because that represents our business community, that, of course, they're interested in all things that help with creating jobs, revenue, jobs for all of us, for our children, ourselves, that what we found is that these other pieces that that I've mentioned really is driving the attendance more so than the lake, because the lake has a lot of complexities that have been well established by the presentation. And so I think the interest is, so how can we reassign some of those projects that were based on an old model, as pointed out, 1990s, going back to the 50s, 06. How can we encourage current stakeholders, DWR, to perhaps redirect those millions and billion dollars to be reassessed and reevaluated to something closer to our city, which would have a greater benefit for all of us. And the other piece that was attracted a lot of attention that came up in another meeting, and that is that revenues and businesses stayed pretty brisk, and that is because people discovered here in the North State we have lakes that don't fluctuate. The after bay, the forebay, they stay consistent. So even though the lake, of course, is tremendously impacted by whether it's the climate change issue, various needs, ecological needs, that these bodies of water stay very, very consistent, and that's an attraction. That's a benefit. That's a plus. That's something that, as a community, that we can sell and attract a greater investment into our area. And so I think that that's really what's driving this new conversation going forward. And so it's forward thinking. So it's not so much looking back in the rearview mirror, but moving forward as a community. What can we do to seize hold of these opportunities? And so this is a great conversation, I think, to start in our community and our town amongst one another as we move forward, as we think about what we have, the assets that we have, and leverage that. So I think our future is bright, our opportunities are boundless, and so just things to think about and consider. Thank you.
Councilmember Pittman.
Yeah, I certainly appreciate the presentation and conversation. I mean, this has been a long battle for a lot of years. I might suggest that you make a presentation to the Oroville Dam Safety Committee, which is formed by law, to look at the Lake Oroville project. Some of us serve on that particular committee, and they are developing a final report that is due for the fourth quarter of 2022. It's a very good open discussion. It's been held by Zoom meetings lately, but we hope to have, and it happens every 3 months. We just had one the 3rd of December, last Friday, and it looks at the entire project, and I think that it's reasonable to say that recreation needs to be part of the safety component, because obviously one affects the other, and we hear many times the reports on recreation facilities, the issues that are going on with the dam, so it might be a great presentation place for you to do that, because that affects the representation on that committee, I believe, is all the way down the river, from city council to Yuba City to Marysville, Sutter County, Yolo County, sheriffs and elected officials. And it might be a great place to make that presentation. And the committee chair is Wade Crowfoot, who's the Natural Resources Secretary for the governor. So it'd be a good place to have that, and also hear the words spoken to DWR and their staff and state water contractors. So that would be my suggestion, and I'll be happy to help facilitate that if you wish to do so. Very good presentation. Thank you.
Councilmember Riggs.
Thank you. Recreation in our community is something that I very much care for, and even as my time on the Parks Commission had brought, a number of years ago, had brought up the concerns regarding the fact that the license wasn't renewed and that we are kind of in a standstill for recreation development in our community. So I know that this is something that I have continued to watch, and I look forward to resolution. However, because the Supplemental Benefits Fund is a settlement agreement, I think that it's more prudent that the current agreement be examined by our city attorney and look at what opportunity we have to make amendments specifically regarding recreational opportunities along the low flow channel, the forebay and the afterbay. On another note, I do very much appreciate any opportunity for recreation, especially as we continue to see loss of recreation at the lake and throughout the community.
So
Thank you.
Councilperson Riggs, if I could just clarify, what you're asking for is for Mr. Huber to examine the settlement agreement to see what opportunities, and report back to the council what those opportunities may be as far as either reopening this agreement or amending or adding addendums to this agreement.
Yeah, yes, please, thank you.
Thank you.
Vice Mayor Thompson.
Just last comment. I'm totally on favor of evaluating recreation, something I've been talking to DWR for a while now, and every chance I can talk to them in regards to the amount of money that's being spent up on the dam. For example, recently $42 million on parking lots and spillways. I mean, ramps. So it's like $42 million. $10 million for recreation in Oroville would make a huge impact, because I'm not sure about how many of you have boats, but I'm pretty sure that the population of Oroville at large, most of them don't have boats in order to enjoy the $42 million that have been spent on parking lots and boat ramps. So trying to push them in this direction has been a wrestling match. I think you've been there in those conversations. You asked the question of, okay, can we spend money down here on this side? And it seems like you get a bunny trailed a 15-minute story of the SBF and all this. And it's like, okay, well, you've been spending money here. Can you spend a portion of that in this direction where actually people can actually use it for recreation? So anyway, what is being presented, I as a council member would totally support, because again, we're supposed to have recreation on this side and not just parking lots. And I'm not opposed to parking lots, but balance.
Agreed.
Councilmember Smith.
Just one final comment, and that is ORAC. It's an acronym. We toss it around a lot. It stands for Oroville Recreational Advisory Committee. And so it's important that the public engages on that level, because your voice does matter. It is heard, and it's not just a waste of time. And so I just want to implore and encourage all the public to engage and to let your voice be heard as to what your desires are, what you'd like to see. It is important, and it does make a difference. I know a lot of times people feel like, their mind's already made up. Don't bother me with the details, because my mind's already made up. But no, I think you can and we will move the needle and have a new conversation when it comes to recreation. So thank you again.
Okay, at this time, we will open the meeting up for public communication. This is the time to hear of non-agenda items. Madam Clerk, is there anyone who wishes to speak on non-agenda items?
Mr. Mayor, our first speaker is Stephanie Irish and then Stephanie Holstein.
Good evening, council. I'm a little, I guess you could say, upset as a business owner. It's my understanding the council is here to make our city better in supporting our small businesses. The reason I say that is because I read something disturbing on a business owner's page. There was a council member that entered their business and the service is not as adequate as they thought it should be because they're short-staffed, as we all know, everybody is. But they made a ruckus in the restaurant. And they demanded a refund and more. And then when they were given their refund, they said, I know you own another business downtown, and I'm putting a bad review there too, having never been in that business. I would like to say I was shocked, but I knew who it was immediately. The abuse of power is real and alive in our city. I'm appalled to even speak on this. I encourage the community to pay closer attention during our elections. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, our second speaker is Stephanie Holstein and then Brian Williams.
That'll be fun to follow. Okay. I wanted to let you guys know of something really positive that's happening in the town. My husband and I have started a community walk on the levee. It's called the Levee Community Walk. We live in the neighborhood of Safford around 4th Street where the tennis courts are. We have some issues there sometimes, and we want the community to come and join us. I hope you'll join us. I hope you'll all join us. We do it on Saturdays at 9 in the morning. We meet at Mug Shots. We bring trash bags. Nobody has to pick up trash if you don't want to, but just people coming together has made a really big difference. We've had people come out, they've seen the presence, they've witnessed for themselves the beauty of the levee and what issues there are and how we can all solve them together. And I think it's really important. I want to take a moment to invite you guys. I hope at some point on a Saturday in the future, you'll join us. We go down to Bedrock. My husband and I have offered to take the trash. We put it in our trash cans ourselves. We're doing whatever we can. We'll bring gloves, whatever anybody needs. But we would love to see you guys out there. It's a beautiful area, but it's a little neglected right now as far as just everybody's kind of has a lot on their plate. So we wanted to take that time and bring the community together. So we've done that, and it's been a real success so far. We're going to keep doing it. We're also going down the path towards the bridge, and we're getting a lot of great feedback. It's been really wonderful so far, and it's a great opportunity. And you've been talking about recreation and doing positive things, and the levee is such a beautiful area. So we really, really, really hope that if you guys can find some time, come and join us for an hour. Thank you very much.
Sorry, date and time again, where do you do that?
We're doing it Saturday at 9 in the morning. I know sometimes, I guess there's some conflicts with other walks, but the levee's a really, really wonderful place. So if you guys can ever find it in your schedule to just come out even once, I hope you'll see what we're trying to envision there and the community enjoying that space the way it should be. Thank you very much.
Our next speaker is Brian Williams and then Bill Spear.
Members for listening to us. I am Stephanie's husband. My name is Brian Williams. I'm just going to kind of add a little bit to that. We do wish everybody can come out and help with joining the community. We're also looking for other volunteers who may be able to host some of these walks on different days and in different places, whether it's walking up to the little bridge or dam or just anywhere else anybody else thinks that needs some attention, so we can get community members a number so we can go observe these things and communally work together to find solutions. Thank you for your guys' time.
Our next speaker is Bill Spear and then Pastor David Goodson.
Mr. Mayor, Vice Mayor, City Council, I really love our city, really love the people here, and the initiative they take, the River Walk and the Chamber and the reevaluating the recreation and standing up for our city and for the people here. Really appreciate our city council and standing up for us and the people that live here. Real excited the resolution that you passed, the constitutional republic, and the response that it got not only from our city but all across our nation of people who are upset with a lot of things, how the country is going, and we got a lot of response. And it seems kind of silly just stating the obvious that we are a constitutional republic anyway. But that being said, I just want to thank you again, and I want to pray for you all as we move forward. So, Father God, I thank you for our city council, and thank you for the wisdom that you've given. It says, if anyone lacks wisdom, let him ask God, who gives generously to all, and it will be given. And so I pray with the power of your Spirit that you would continue to give them wisdom, continue to bless them and protect their families and raise them up. And in your word, it says, the greatest of all shall be the servant of all. And so we thank you for the public servants. We thank you for all the people that serve in our city. Thank you for our fire department and the police department and for all the nonprofits. And we pray that you would continue to bless us, continue to use our city as a light on a shelf, a city on a hill, to be an example for the rest of our country. And we pray for breakthroughs, as it says that you will reap what you sow, as we sow into the recreation, and we look at the gift that you've given Oroville, the beauty, the lake, but also the river, the after bay, the fore bay, that you would raise up people to intercede, raise up the watchmen on the wall, raise up the churches that to see the opportunity. We pray for all the homeless and all the people that have been burned out, and we pray that as we have opportunity, that you would use us to be the difference. You would use us to intercede, that you would use us to show your light and your love. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Our last speaker on non-agenda items is Pastor David Goodson.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Vice Mayor, and City Council members. I'm here this evening to offer a suggestion. South Oroville has been neglected for a long time compared to downtown Oroville. You always hear talk of improving downtown, but you don't hear talk about improving South Side. And my suggestion is that I would urge the City Council to put together an advisory committee that will consist of at least 2 council members, code enforcement, and community members to address the needs in South Oroville. There are abandoned homes and houses that are burnt, that have been burnt for a number of years. This discussion has been brought before the council before, and the conversation always says, well, there's legal issues that have to be overcome to get rid of the blight. And we've been doing a lot of talking, but no action, very little action. There's been some movement and there has been some improvement, but there needs to be more. And I would hope that the council would take this recommendation seriously so that there would be a mixture of individuals from the city, from the community, and from code enforcement that will be on this so that we can see some things improved. We have tennis shoes up on power lines or whatever, telephone lines that have been there now for years. And all it requires is that many of the things that are going on there, code enforcement can ride through and see. But instead, we have to submit these reports, or either we have to make phone calls and put pressure to get things actionable. It shouldn't have to be that way. We should want Southside to be just as beautiful as any other area. And, you know, for the mayor, you're mayor of Oroville. You're not mayor of just downtown. or Kelly Ridge, or constituents that voted you in. But you're the mayor for everyone. And you should be proud, and you should want to see Oroville shine, including South Oroville. Thank you.
Wait a minute. Wait a minute, Pastor Goodson. I want to respond to that. Weren't you in here a couple of weeks ago giving your complaint about a blighted property behind your church?
Yes, sir.
What happened?
Well, some action was taken on that. We're still waiting for further
Immediate action.
Yes, and I do
Yes, sir.
appreciate that. I do appreciate that. So if I could respond, that was one thing, but we have a lot more. I mean, there's properties all over, and you're familiar, Chuck, you grew up in Oroville, so you know what goes on in Oroville, what it looks like on South Side. And all I'm saying is that I'm trying to take this from a positive view. Let's take action together. The council members, everyone should be concerned. I know that we're getting ready to move to districts, and each council member is going to be looking out for their district. But in a conversation that I had with an individual, I indicated that the mayor is mayor of everything here, and that you would be concerned, and you would definitely be an actionable mayor that will be looking out for the best interests of Oroville to beautify South Side. If you bring up the least of your residents and your community, then the rest of it will shine too.
Okay, wait a minute. Wait a minute. Have I been to your church?
Yes, you have.
Pastor Thompson, have I been to your church? And I've been to several other churches in South Oroville to let everyone know that I am the mayor of the whole city, not part of it. And I have been over there cleaning up several blighted properties with our code enforcement, and I never seen any of you there helping. So, but I seen me and Mr. Lagrone there loading dumpsters and everything else. I hear the complaints, but I don't see any help when it's time to do the work.
So, Mr. Mayor, my response to you is this. If you would take my recommendation, create a committee, an actionable committee that includes residents, that includes your city council members, that includes code enforcement, then everybody would be aware of when these things need to be done and where they need to show up and put their hands together in order to remove the blight.
Some of the houses we cleaned up were complaints from you and your spouse, so I would think that you would know when and where they were being cleaned up.
Mayor Reynolds, and my response to you is that I'm not here to argue or debate with you, but I'm here to put us all on the same team and on the same page. And rather than looking back at what was negative or what you're seeing, but if we can look forward and be forward thinking and say, let's work together as a team. Use the acronym TEAM. Together, everyone achieves more. And let's work together, okay?
I agree. But you came up, sir, accusing us of not responding and only talking. And I'm simply setting the record straight. You, sir, I've always known as a gentleman, and you and I have always gotten along. I would say that we should continue to do so, because I don't accuse you of things. I simply state the facts. And please give a fair account of what has happened.
I think a fair account is that anyone here, including those that might have agreed with your statement, if you've never drove through Southside, if you haven't been on Southside, then you don't know Southside. Okay? All right? And so I would encourage those that live in the more prosperous areas, will get involved too. Okay? Let's all get involved. Let's bring up our city together. And I think that will be our solution. But let's go ahead and create a group, a commission, so that we can work on this, an advisory committee that can take action so that we can make some changes. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
All right, that is the last of the speakers on non-agenda items.
Okay, with that, we'll close public communication. Looking for a motion to adopt the consent calendar.
I move that we adopt the consent calendar.
Before we move on that, I'd like to have item 8 pulled on the consent calendar.
Looking for a motion to adopt the consent calendar, pulling item number 8.
Mr. Mayor, I do have one public speaker on the consent calendar. Susan Sims.
We need to adopt the consent calendar.
There's
that we adopt the consent calendar exempt item 8.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, we have public comment regarding which item, Ms. Sims?
There's actually two. I had no intentions of speaking when I came, but Mr. Thompson brought something up that made me want to just say a word. And then actually, Mr. Goodson, I just wanted to let him know that Saturday, Oroville Botanic Garden, Feather River Recreation and Parks, we planted 54 trees at Martin Luther King.
Excuse me, Ms. Sims, is this related, is this a non-agenda item that you're wishing to speak about, or is there an agenda
No,
item?
it's actually, other than that little public notice, it was number 2.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. This is the time for number 2.
Okay, number 2, you said, is anybody got boats in here? So I'm just kind of here for my husband. We have a patio boat on Lake Oroville, and my husband's disabled, so we keep it moored there so that he can easily access it and, enjoy himself. He hasn't been able to do that for a great many months, and he can't even take it out because you can't get down to get them out, but you're still paying. So just more ammunition for your council. Thank you. I'm Susan Sims, by the way. Sorry.
Mr. Mayor, just 2 things. One, Ms. Sims, thank you for the trees. We appreciate that. That's sorely needed, and we do appreciate that. And the second thing is that is not number 2 on the consent agenda. That was the number 2 as far as presentations. So just for clarity, no, it's okay. Just want to be clear about what we're doing here.
And the
So, Mr. Mayor, you
We're
have
voting on the consent calendar, pulling item number 8.
There was a vote. Oh, who seconded that?
Okay.
motion carries with 7 yeses and 0 nos.
Councilmember Pittman, you pulled item number 8. You wish to comment?
Yes, I do. Looking at the municipal service review, it's a great large document, and there's a lot of detail, and it looks like the contractor has put together a pretty fair document. Although on page 83, there's a description of a map that shows.
Excuse me, Mr. Pittman, Mr. Mayor, can we just take a small moment to let those exit that want to, so we can, I'm having a hard time hearing, Mr. Pittman.
I got you. Thanks for coming, folks.
So, no, she's okay. Page 83.
It's just a daily routine.
We're all somewhere.
So, yeah.
And for everyone who wishes to exit, has exited, we need to reconvene order in the chambers. Councilmember Pittman.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate that, and thanks for all that for taking the time. In my personal review of the MSR, I noticed on page 83 there's a map there, and that particular map is showing jurisdiction of the city and spheres of influence. It does not accurately show the city limits. It's way off. It doesn't show the annexation of 2016. So there's just an issue there to correct. It's a matter of jurisdictional boundary. And then a couple things have happened since this was put together, which shows October. We've got the addition of the new facilities at the SCORE plant. We've changed a few things, so there's a couple appendixes that I'm not trying to change the document, but we ought to add to the document that have been changes that occurred since then. So I'm just looking at, is this a draft for review, or is this isn't the final version, is it?
This is the final version received by the consultant.
Okay, so my suggestion would be to take a few of these things, maybe the other councilmen have a few things they've seen in there, but I would like to see the additions of the MSR, especially the new construction work we're doing for the capacity issue for the score plant. I think that's a pretty important thing to have in here. And then a little bit of correctness on the map because it doesn't have the city's jurisdiction at all. So those are a couple of things that we should add.
Those are comments we can provide to LAFCO.
Okay.
Councilmember Smith.
Yeah, and also within this report or review, solid waste comes up. And so just an opportunity to voice something that I recently spoke to Don about. On a personal note, I had a washer and dryer to dispose of, and I did not have the company pick it up because I was going to give it away. When my wife said, the wash machine doesn't work. Ooh, I can't give away a broken piece of equipment. I was going to haul it down to 5th Street, $50. Well, I have a rental in the county, and I get free pickups up there. It's like, but you don't get that in town, and not everyone has a truck. And I just, got to thinking of processing that. So I asked Don to look into, with solid waste, to review that, look at that. Because I know that our waste contract's coming up, to make it more amenable for us. And I'm just going back to the South Side conversation with blight and all of that. If we had a more robust program to make it easier for us, all of us, to dispose of items that might find their way onto, an alley or something, I think that would be a good thing. So, but anyway, just wanted to address that since that's in this report as an item of discussion, that I'd like to see that.
Okay. I did respond to that email. I heard back from the general manager of Recology, and so the residents within the city of Oroville do receive a voucher for 2 free drop-offs each year, but it's not the pickup. So he said we could absolutely address this in the updated franchise agreement.
Councilmember Goodson.
Thank you, Councilman Pittman, for pulling this item. And so as I looked, I wanted to look at the statement under the background where it states that the MSR update is required prior to any sphere changes or annexations within the area of study. And also we see that back in 2014, we had issues of concern in regards to the services provided and the city's abilities to do so. And first and foremost, as city officials, we are elected to address the protection and the safety of each of our residents and our guests. So my concern, and I guess my question to our city administrator, Bill Agrone, in regards to annexing yet another area. What is our staff currently in regards to law enforcement?
Our current staffing in law enforcement is below 50% of what we are authorized and allocated from the city council for budgeting purposes. We have had multiple officers leave for various departments and for various reasons. So as it exists right now, the MSR does reflect that we have the capacity and the ability to annex, but in practicality, the numbers that are presented in the MSR are based upon budgeted positions. Those budgeted positions are not filled. So part of the process for an annexation would have to be the return to the budgeted size of the police department at this time. So we are 50% below where we should be. We have a very low number of police officers right now.
So my point of specificity currently in the city of Oroville, and we can say there's an approximate population base of 20,000?
Roughly.
Roughly. What is our current law enforcement staff? Are we able to service the city of Oroville currently?
We are marginally able to provide service at this time. We are at a situation that we are reliant upon some mutual aid with our sheriff, who has been very helpful in that and agreeable to that. We are currently at 16 police officers, 15 at this time. We're normally allocated 27 police officers, and we have 4 more that are anticipating leaving. So we have staffing levels that appear to be going down to approximately 11. If it gets down to 11 police officers, what that means is either the lieutenant or myself will be filling a shift.
So would it be reasonable to say that in regards to this agenda item that perhaps it may be tabled?
No.
All right.
It needs to move forward and go through the LAFCO
Even with
process.
the low percentage
Yes,
of
ma'am,
staff?
because you'll never get to optimal of all of, well, shouldn't say you never would. It's going to take time to get to that. I think it's important to have the MSR completed and have it gone through the LAFCO process, but it's also important for the council to understand what you understand, that we have to not only have the MSR, but what is the practical application of the assets that we currently have in our human resource pool. I mean, so, and what I mean is you have to judge when is the right time for that annexation based upon the personnel that you have available. I mean, but it is important to have the document in place. We're required to have it in place, and we need to move this through the process.
So what I hear you saying, it is my understanding that moving forward with knowing the facts here in regards to the lack of law enforcement staff currently, but moving forward with the combined with the sheriff as well.
No, what I'm saying is that you should approve the document.
I get that.
Now you get this document approved. Now, should the council decide to annex tomorrow, let's just say hypothetically we move forward to
This
area.
document is already in place.
This document's in place. However, even with this document in place, you must make application to LAFCO to do that annexation of that land into the city. You will not survive a LAFCO application and test at this time with your staffing levels, because even though the document shows if you had all of that staffing that you could provide service, you don't have all that staffing, so you can't provide service. So we would be reliant upon the sheriff to augment our law enforcement services at this time. So the prudent thing to do would be to approve the document and then continue to work on our human resource pool to get that to where it needs to be as you have these discussions about how you would like to move forward on annexation.
All right. Thank you, Bill.
Yes, ma'am.
And
Vice Mayor
also,
Thompson.
I was just going to clarify that this is not for formal action for the council to adopt this document. The formal action lies with LAFCO for adoption of this document.
Right.
This is for city council review and to provide comment during the 21-day public comment period.
Vice Mayor Thompson.
Thank you. Mr. Legrone, would you, knowing being that you're our current acting
Yes,
chief
sir.
police, and you're involved with law enforcement and you have a relationship with law enforcement, would you say that in part the exodus of staff, law enforcement leaving not only here of our police department, but also locally, regionally?
Yes, sir. This is not unusual. We are not alone.
So would you say that part of that, in part, has to do with the recent census from a population of our community to defund the police and the hostility towards law enforcement that would cause some people to move or to leave? I'm asking him.
I believe in general that there's been that people not, why subject yourself to that? But I think it's also changes in the law. You've seen, Proposition 47, 57, AB 109. I mean, it goes clear back to that. And you've seen this slow progression where, and I have to ask myself this is, I have 20 plus years in law enforcement. I don't know what you do anymore to break the law because it seems like everything's okay. I mean, so if I have that apathetic attitude, I mean, it's very difficult for people coming into the profession because it's, why bother? And when you talk about losing qualified immunity and things like that, where the total exposure to any liability is on me for any reason that anybody dreams up, it's difficult to recruit people. So you do have people exiting the profession that can retire, and you have people that are not interested in it. Quite honestly, why go into something that is inherently risky and dangerous and not only exposes you to great liability when you can make the same amount of money doing something that doesn't have any of those components? So it's just been very difficult. It's a difficult time. It's a changing world. All of those things have contributed to it. It's no one thing, though, that's caused this. It's a multitude of, it's almost like, I guess the best way to say it is we have the perfect storm. I just want to reassure everybody, too, it's not just us. I mean, it is all of law enforcement at all levels that is struggling with personnel and getting people into seats.
You better swear me in, Bill.
Well, with that item and the discussion added to the conversation and the comments would be going forward to LAFCO, then I would move that we approve that item.
I second.
Motion carries with 6 yeses and 1 no.
And with that, we're moving on to regular business. Item number 10, coronavirus fiscal recovery funding in an amount of $300,000 for the Oroville Inn.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and Council. What you have before you tonight is essentially an item where we are sunshining what we did at our last council meeting. At our last council meeting, we, as a governing body, we loaned $300,000 to the operators of the Oroville Inn. We loaned that out of the America Recovery Plan dollars that came in. Those dollars are specifically for a few things. One of those things, while reviewing the Federal Register of Regulation on that funding, is to make loans to businesses that were heavily impacted by the coronavirus, loans or grants. I had been in contact with Mr. Tracy, who is the principal at the Oroville Inn, which is a large facility over here. Everyone should be familiar with that, but if you aren't, it's a large, I believe it's a 6-story hotel. It used to be a hotel. Now it is a dormitory, 5-story. Okay, so if you go on the roof, the penthouse is the 6th story. I mean, I was trying to be technical. I mean,
the water tank.
However, in all seriousness, what had happened is during the time of the coronavirus, the student population that normally resides at the Oroville Inn and is not there all day went through the lockdown and they were there all day. This caused a financial impact onto the Oroville Inn and to the operators of it. A utility bill that went from $6,000 a month went to $18,000 because people were in the facility using it all day long every day. Additional cleanings were necessary because of COVID, because of the students that were there. That added an additional burden onto the overhead and operational cost of the facility. There was also the necessity of having the Wi-Fi increased so that there was bandwidth for the students to remotely learn from the Oroville Inn. So all of these things financially impacted the facility. As the facility moved through and past that, where students began to return to class, and we come back into a quasi real time of how things were, the financial impact was overly great for the facility, and the facility became in jeopardy of going into foreclosure. Those reasons are because of the operational costs, the heavy operational costs, and the fact that the student base that's necessary to be in there to support the facility, I believe it takes 80 to run it, 90 to become profitable, and they were not reaching those numbers. So Mr. Tracy and his investors were kind of behind the 8 ball on this one, and it was becoming in peril, and there was the possibility of foreclosure of the facility. If the facility was to be foreclosed upon and lost in our downtown core, we have lost approximately 100 students that would be in the downtown area on a regular basis, expending dollars on, I would assume it's mostly on beverages and on eating and things like that, and ice cream. So we would lose these consumers in our downtown. We would also lose the ability to support the Lineman College because we would not have this facility operating in our downtown core. One of the other issues, or another issue that existed for the city on this, and why it was of interest to us and concern, is because there is a reversion clause within the original sales agreement that we could potentially end up with the facility back. The facility carries a mortgage and carries debt. In order for us to end up and to act upon that, which we could potentially act upon, we would have to clear that debt. So we are not operators of these types of facilities. We do not know how to operate these types of facilities. And I can speak personally, I don't want this facility back. I mean, I want to see it, used in its best possible purpose, which I believe is where it's at right now. So in order to facilitate that and to keep the business afloat, we went through a meeting with Mr. Tracy, reviewed some of the necessary documents and talked with Mr. Tracy about what was necessary to keep the business afloat. It was imperative that we had this process completed and the loan funded before the 20th of November, because on the 20th of November, if the payment wasn't made, the facility could potentially slip into foreclosure, which would then in turn require Mr. Tracy to notify the 54 or 59 pre-registered students that this facility was no longer available, and he could not rent housing in something that he didn't have possession and control of. If that were to happen, then all of the income is lost, which would assure that the building was going to be foreclosed upon. And that would be the end of the Oroville Inn as in its current state. And then we would have to start making decisions as a city, what were we going to do about it? So as we talked through these things, we came to the conclusion that it would be in the best interest, because this business has been significantly and severely impacted by the coronavirus and COVID-19 and shutdowns and lockdowns and all of those things. It was determined that it would be in our best interest to make a loan in the amount of $300,000 to help subsidize the operation of the business. The loan is secured by the property. It's recorded against the property, and it is at 3.2% interest for the loan. The reason how we came up with 3.2% interest was just coincidentally, 2 days before that, we closed a loan for the city where we funded our debt of about $21 million at 3.2%. The $21 million is unfunded liability. It's PERS obligation bonds. It's no new debt. We haven't bought anything. So we decided that if we have to pay 3.2%, if we're going to loan money, we should also collect 3.2%. So that's how that came up. It's a 10-year note. Mr. Tracy was very amenable to the process, was very forthcoming and honest. It was not easy for Mr. Tracy to make the request, but it was necessary. He understood that. We believed it was necessary. We believed it was important for our city and our council to support our businesses and our downtown core, but all of our, and not just our downtown core, but all of our businesses, especially ones that have a significant impact on the city and our community. So we did make that loan. That's where that money came from. That's what that was about. I think it was important that everybody knew why we did what we did and why we acted so rapidly. The reason why, again, just to recap, why we had to react so rapidly and make these decisions was because if we did not close this deal and have it funded by the 20th, the building would have went into foreclosure, which would have caused the cancellation of the reservations of the students for the next semester, which means that there would have been no income and the facility would have, there would have been no recovery from it. And the financial partners that had invested in the facility, they could go no further with this. They were at the end of the road for them too. Mr. Tracy has told us with the $300,000 that this will tide them through. It will bridge them to a point where the building will be economically sustainable. He is looking at other opportunities. We can't talk about what those are right now because they're not done deals, but he is looking at other opportunities with other learning institutions as well, or possible same type of dormitory housing that he is currently providing to the Lyman College. As we went through this, we also came to the conclusion that it would probably be best that if we're going to do something like this, of the $4.9 million that we have, that we take a certain amount of money and we set this aside for these types of situations. We have recommended that we set aside $600,000 for this situation. $300,000 has been loaned already, so we have a balance of $300,000 still available. What we would recommend is that we make these loans to businesses that have been significantly and severely impacted by COVID-19, and that all of these loans will go through a process of vetting with staff and will ultimately be brought to the council for the council to make the final decision if we're going to make these loans. We recommend that there is a minimum of a 3.2% interest rate, depending on what interest does. As time changes, we will want to meet the minimum of whatever that may be that's out there. But we are recommending that we do that. But we are also additionally recommending, if the council is amenable to the concept of these types of loans, that we will bring back to the council, at the beginning of the year, some program guidelines. We'll go into our economic development, business economic development, part of our organization, retrieve what those guidelines were, streamline those guidelines to fit this funding, and then apply those guidelines that you adopt in the first meeting in January to the applications, if there are any, for these funding before we bring them to you for your final decision. Ultimately, this will remain with the council. The council will make the decision on these loans.
Thank you.
Council, if I, Mr. Mayor, Council, if I could just clarify a couple of things. Number one, this action, as you all know, was properly agendized for closed session at the last regular city council meeting. For the public's knowledge, following the action taken by the council in closed session, this was reported out as action taken in closed session. It is coming back solely to daylight it so that there's no accusation of anything that was done inappropriately. It didn't need to come back on for daylight, but we thought it's best to do that. So I just want the public to know that while it happened in closed session, it was announced out as action, and we're following up what I call the belt and suspenders method. We're also daylighting it here.
Thank you. Do we have any comments from the public on this item?
Mr. Mayor, we do not have any public comments on this item.
Do we have any comments from this dais? Councilmember Pittman.
Thank you, sir. And I am obviously in support of this because I've already voted for this, but I'd also like to have staff put together some kind of public announcement or whatever that would offer this, I call it COVID business assistance loan to the businesses, so they're aware of what the parameters would be. Obviously, we had the necessity of this situation, but I'm sure there's other businesses that may have similar situations. So we ought to get some kind of press release or statement of policy or whatever the case may be, so that the businesses are aware of this.
Yes, sir. I think what we'll do when we come back in January with the guidelines for you to give your approval on, we'll also come back with a notification that we will be putting on our Facebook page and things like for your approval and input.
Thank you.
Councilmember Goodson.
Yes, I just wanted to state for the record that when this came up in closed session, and it's good, it's important for us to be transparent with the citizens, with our taxpayers. My only concern was if we do it for one, we must do it for all. So this must go out to the public. Thank you.
Are there any other comments?
Mr. Mayor, I don't know if Mr. Tracy would like to speak or not, but.
But Tracy Realty Company in the Oroville Inn. No, I wasn't planning on speaking, but the main reason that I came tonight was for two reasons. One was that I heard, have talked obviously about the, after you took the action, and thank you all for that. The other, I believe exactly, Councilman Goodman, that what you're talking about is exactly the right thing. That it has to be out there for others if you can possibly do it. On the other hand, you just can't get a line at the door and go crazy. So it really has to be a very, very real. Thank you for mentioning it, but the bottom line is that it was unbelievably hard to ask. I am not one to ask for that kind of help. And the private investors that had already put up an awful lot of money, all of them had already put up more. And we pretty much just tapped everybody out. And then also the thing that I think was left out of the numbers and yes, the Lyman College making us a classroom of theirs was really bad. The damage was unbelievable, very hard. As you know, I brought the college here in 2006, so I love the people that are in it. When it sold to that corporation that owns it now, they've changed quite a bit.
not quite as concerned about the community as I think they should be, and so on. So what we've taken on inside the inn, you may have noticed that some of the community service came back recently. And that's something that they had as part of their program for years, and I've always been very proud of that. And the president that's out there now was from the new corporate group, and he canceled it because it didn't make any money. So from the Oroville Inn, working with the linemen, the 65 that were in there in the last term, they actually started it back up, and they helped on Salmon Festival and a few other things. So at the moment, the Oroville Inn is the one doing the helping with the community service, so we're hoping to give back with that. But the linemen, you have to understand that I can give you comments or whatever on the college forever, but the bottom line is they still turn out a wonderful program. We were number 2 campus of theirs, they now have 9. And a $60 billion company bought them. So the bottom line is that the students is what we care about, and that's the other ones that I'm here for. And out of 100 students that we had every term was 100 until COVID came along and the Lyman College came out and made some very strong threats, and we ended up going down to 75. That's a massive loss on a monthly basis that we couldn't sustain. And then after the end of that, they pulled some other issues out, and we had no marketing, no backing that had been there for all those years. So we went down to 60, and it just couldn't be made. This time we were at 55. Because of what you guys did, we got fired up. And there's a woman that's the daughter of one of the prior presidents out there, who was one of the most wonderful men I've ever met in my life. And his daughter is 23 years old, and she's a national marketing director for social media. And she's now come on, and he's furnished her to start with because of what you did. And then it's gone from there. She's coming on, proposals come in this week. That's part of what some of the money is going for in the budget. And so the social media marketing is going to go out very, very strongly. I'm not one who can even understand it. I'm not into that game at all. Too old for it. But the bottom line is that's where the students come from. And we just moved in 72. And the reason it went up from the 50s is exactly because you guys came along at the right moment, gave us whole faith, and it was I can't thank you enough. Sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Tracy.
Thank you. Thank you.
So.
And I highly endorse doing that program.
We had no public comments on this? Okay. Looking for a motion to adopt item number 10.
Mr. Mayor, this is just for informational purposes
Yeah.
only, and if the consensus of the council is to bring back guidelines, we will be doing that.
Okay. All right. Well, moving on to item number 11, Elmodale Fire District.
Mr. Mayor and Council, this is an item that was placed on the agenda at the request of Councilman Pittman, along with the consent of Councilperson Goodson and Hatley. It's regarding a potential joint powers agreement with the Elmodale Fire District. With that, I will turn it over to Councilman Pittman.
Thank you, sir. We received a request for a joint powers agreement from the Ammodale Fire Board. Many of you know the troubles they've had for the last year, and they've struggled to try to get to a level back of providing service. There is a letter attached, and when I get done, I'd like to ask the representative from Elmodel come up and speak to more detail of it. But it's a proposal that my hope is this council votes to put it back to staff and have them work on the numbers that are being presented and potentially bring back some kind of a joint powers agreement for fire service provision. And it's a beginning of the document. The thing I like to relate this to is, you know, the city only exists for partnerships. And we've got partnerships all over this town with the golf course, the convention center, the State Theater, a lot of partnerships. And I see this one as a simple partnership for now. A great many of the folks that are in Elmodale are City of Oroville voters. And the Elmodale Fire Board was voted on by voters out there to provide this revenue for the fire service. So I think the responsible thing on the board is they've come to the point to come to ask the city for some kind of a joint powers agreement. There's a letter here that has great detail, but the detail are just the talking points to have between staff And my hope would be to have staff review this letter and then come back with something that might work. I'd also like to ask Board Member Munch to come up and speak. Sir, if you would. No, it's all right. I'll keep talking while you're getting up there. You know, and the Elmodale Station 3 has been around a long time, and I served in the fire service here, and there's a lot of good people out there. But the key thing that I like to see here is there's an awful lot of support for the fire service in that area. Consequently, they have supported this fire district. They're to a point where they need help, and I see this as a future partnership, however we go down that path. So, Board Member Munch, thank you for coming to the lectern.
Thank you, Councilman Pittman. Evening, Council. I was here during the executive committee meeting, and of course it didn't kind of go in our favor. And I guess I was asked to come again to kind of reminisce in front of the whole council, kind of where we stand. Like Councilman Pittman said, we're at our end. We've tried just about every option that we know to survive. And it's for the constituents, our taxpayers of the district. It's a benefit to the point that that's why I'm here tonight, to fight for it. The response time is so important to the members of South Oroville. Every minute counts when it comes to an emergency, as we all know. And the last thing that we presented to the executive committee was a proposal that wasn't really meant to be taken as a hard and fast final document without, should I say, mitigation or looking at these as bullet points for our staff and the Oroville staff to sit down and look at these things and discuss these things and openly come to some kind of a workable agreement that works for both parties, the city and the Oroville, and the Elmodale, so we can both benefit from a joint powers and agreement. We have nice assets. We've got Jaws alive, so we've got engines, we've got a water tank, we've got an air wagon, we've got nice facilities that can be shared with staff from Oroville, whether it be fire department, police department. And I just see it's so important to the citizens of South Oroville and the district to fight and struggle and keep this thing alive. Perhaps just to the point where maybe we can get another initiative going, because I feel in my heart that we can, another initiative in front of the taxpayers would fly, and we could maybe get back on our feet again. The district's 100 years old, and it has done a lot of good for South Oroville. And I just see no reason why that we can't come with some kind of an agreement to where both of us can benefit, rather than me throwing the hat in. Like I said, we're at our end, and I think, you know, this board meeting tomorrow or January may be our final, depending on what this council can say. I've been a public servant for 42 years. I retired as an assistant manager at the Butte County Mosquito Abatement District, and I know how important it is for special districts. In the survival of the Ammodale Fire Department is something in my heart that I just know is right, and hope we can come to some kind of an agreement to keep us going. Steve Terry has got a document that he wants to present, and I want the council to know, me as a board member, that what he presents and what you get in writing is not in concrete. Use those things in context as bullet points to where maybe city staff and our staff can get together and say, okay, what we can do on this one, and just go right on down until we can work out something. We have a budget. It's not enough to sustain us on our own, but I'm sure what we do have in our budget can go a long ways to help put something together between the city and the district. So I'll be available for some questions after Steve gets through with his thing. But I thank you for your time, and I do hope for your consideration on this matter.
Thank you, Munch.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Mr. Vice Mayor, and Council. You all have the updated proposal that I sent, and I really want to reiterate what Mr. Munch just said. First off, it's really important. This is not a proposal. This is what a proposal can look like. This is negotiable points. That's what we have. The Elmodale Fire Protection District is in danger of going away. And if it goes away, then what will happen is tax revenue of up to $750,000 a year will be lost, because when it goes away, it's gone. When the district dissolves, that money dissolves. It goes back to the taxpayers as well, where it should go. And rather than go through all of this, I want to point out that when you were discussing the municipal service review, I looked at that. I got the packet and I went through and looked, and I noticed that there's a portion in there regarding the fire department. And I'm looking at page 159 of your packet, and it simply says, for agencies with paid staff, such as the City of Oroville, NFPA 1710 identifies a response time guideline of 6 minutes at least 90% of the time. The city has adopted a policy in its 2030 general plan of encouraging the department to maintain a response time of 5 minutes, travel time at least 90% of the time. The city did not provide 90th percentile response times for 2020, and it is unknown if it is meeting the adopted standard. The fact is that from Oroville City 1, or from Oroville Station 1 to parts of the Elmodale district, they cannot, it's not even logical to expect that they're going to make that 5-minute standard. It's just not going to happen, and it hasn't happened. And the citizens of South Oroville deserve that time response as well. Medical calls require quick response. So what we're actually proposing here is a way to serve our community in a better way. I would point out to you that, and I put this in the back of our statement, that really the goal here is to get Elmodale opened back up as a fully functional fire department. And in that last paragraph of this proposal, what I put, or these bullet points, was the goal of this agreement is to reopen Elmodale Fire Department as a fully functional fire department, which was endorsed by Oroville Fire Department Chief Tens and CAL FIRE Chief Messina. The result of this will be beneficial to public safety for those residents living in the Elmodale Fire Protection District by improving response times into the district area. Elmodale Fire Protection District is requesting the establishment of this JPA as a means of accomplishing that goal. We understand and recognize that Elmodale moving in that direction will result in future change to this agreement. We respectfully request that this be moved to staff. Let's look at this. Let's see how it works. The fact of the matter is, whether we go forward as a city, whether you go forward with CAL FIRE or whether you don't go forward with CAL FIRE, the fact is there's Station 63 and there's Station 1. It's not going to improve the response times. Station 3 is right there. That's what improves the response times. Station 3 has always been a very busy station. It's been one of the busiest in the county. I don't think the level of response required in the district has diminished. I think, in fact, if I could had the numbers, and I don't, I think we'd probably find it's either increased or at least maintained what it was. The other thing that I would point out of the municipal services review that you just that you just approved. Forgive me for a second as I look through my dog-eared pages. It says a special district, this was regarding the Elmodale Fire Protection District. It says a special district can be formed when within the incorporated city limits, and it refers to government code, in order to identify ways in which the city and EMFPD may best work together and eliminate certain duplications of efforts and costs. A memorandum of understanding or a joint powers agreement may be options for formalizing some form of joint operations and administration, such as shared financing of a single chief. It is recommended that the city and district begin conversations to determine where efficiencies may be gained through these cooperative efforts. Upon demonstration of successful joint operations, establishment of a subsidiary district would be a logical next step towards efficient services and logical boundaries. That's in the municipal services review that you just approved. And that's what that's read out of. Folks, I'm telling you, we need to do better. I've been part of Elmodale for the last 15 years. I'm a water tender operator. I've been part of it for a long time. We need to improve. We need to serve the city of Oroville and the south side or South Oroville residents. And we need to do it in a better way than what has been happened. I didn't like it when Elmodale closed. And in truth, and the board knows this, so I'm going to say it, I didn't agree with it. But that's where it is right now. And I've been one of the ones that have been pushing for the last year to try and get this thing opened back up. I think our citizens deserve that response time, and I think they deserve that service.
Thank you, sir. I have one more quick comment to finish, and I'll let the rest of the council go on. But one of the things that you look in the MSR, it does look at the industry standards and the per capita of fire stations, firefighters, police officers per capita, as Councilman Goodson said. And the interesting thing on page 102, it says flat out that City of Oroville is behind 2 fire stations. From what we existingly operate from right now, we need 2 more fire stations. So this is not this is a help to the needs that the city has. So that's why I would heartily recommend that we take this letter, send it back to staff, and have them put something together so we can all see something forward. Thank you all.
My name is Gary Neaston. I'm the chief of the Ammodale Fire Department. I've been with this department for 50 years. Some of you haven't even lived 50 years yet. I'm a guy that's down in the streets doing what we're supposed to be doing for 50 years. I don't have a whole lot of codes and municipality type talk. I'm from the streets. This is what I do. I've got 2 items that I want to talk to you about and try to convince you how needed we are as far as our station goes. And one of them happened to be tonight, brought my memory to this. So I only had one, but I've got 2 now. 2017, Spillway Incident. Elmodale Fire Department was central hub for every emergency response for that night. Cal Fire, Butte County Sheriff's Office, Search and Rescue, us, Oroville City, all of those engines were at our station, and we were the central hub of that. So that's one reason why we're needed. And the other reason is I'm going to relate you about a delay in dispatch, if you will. I'm not real comfortable with the way this happened, but I hope this is not the way it's happening out there just because it's Southside. A day before Thanksgiving, we had the food giveaway at the station. We were all there getting ready. It was about 9 o'clock in the morning, 9:30, something like that. I'm dressed in my uniform. Car comes pulling up to the station and very fast in our parking lot. Said, "There's a man laying in the road up here." We said, "Okay, have you called 911?" They said, "Yes, we've dialed 911. I turned around to the staff that I had. I said, "Call 911, tell them there's a man down unresponsive at B and Myers." They did. I walked up there. It's a block away from the station. I walked up there, found a man laying in the gutter. I monitor every emergency dispatch on my pager that I have, every single one. And nothing was dispatched. It took me probably 2 minutes to walk up there. Still nothing, still nothing. It's been 5 minutes. I turned around to the people that I was with, says, dial 911 again, tell them we have an unresponsive person. And I heard them tell the dispatcher we have an unresponsive patient at that address. Still nothing, still nothing. Another few minutes went by. All of a sudden, OPD shows up, code 2, which means you're just driving, no lights and siren. The officer gets out, takes one look and goes, yeah, we know this person. Person's unresponsive. I don't know how long they've been laying in the street, but they're unresponsive. He could have been hit by a car. He could have had multiple problems. I know what the problem was because I'm a paramedic and I knew that I couldn't do anything for him, but he needed to go to the hospital. And I can't tell you what was wrong with him because that's HIPAA violation. But I knew what was wrong with him. I had to convince the OPD officer to call and make the call. 10 minutes has gone by. 12 minutes have gone by. Finally, after the person got on the radio and said, dispatch an ambulance, I heard the call go out on my radio, and it took them another, 4 or 5 minutes to get the engine and the ambulance there. I hope that's not what happens all over. If this had happened at Bird and Myers, I'm sure that that engine and ambulance and OPD would have been dispatched like that. But no, this was Southside. And I don't want to say that that's what happens on all of the dispatches. I hope not. But I've been in this business too long to let that one go by.
Mr. Mayor, I've been in this business a long time too. That is not, it has anything to do with the location of it or anything else. If there's, if you're medical personnel and you're there on scene, I would hope to think that you're providing service.
Thank you.
I couldn't do anything for the man.
Well, you said you're a paramedic.
Yes,
I mean, so I would hope to think that you were doing that. Your comments were offensive, just so you know.
Sorry,
Mr. Nystrom, I think that,
to call for medical service?
Mr. Nystrom, I'm not going to argue with you about it. It was not the inference that it's because it's Southside that nothing was done. That's the offensive part. I'm 100% sure it's not.
I hope so.
I'm sorry, but I would think that it don't matter if you're at a ball game. If you're a first responder, qualified personnel, you administer aid.
Mr. Mayor, I think we've drifted from topic.
Yes,
If
sir.
we could, please return.
Councilmember Goodson.
Yes, I was just listening to your story. I just happened to be in the church across the street, and when I was leaving, and I saw a gentleman standing on the sidewalk. So I was there too. I did observe the length of time. I just wanted to confirm. I didn't have any dialogue, no commentary. I was just an observer, but I did see that there was a delayed response time. That's all I wanted to share on that. But I did want to share that it's been a while, but David Goodson and I, we live on South Side. And so we understand we understand what that service means to our community. And 6 months after David Goodson and I were married, there was a situation that happened in the evening time. And when I turned on the light, he was bleeding profusely. And so when I called Elmodel, they were there. It wasn't 5 minutes. It wasn't 4 minutes. It wasn't 3 minutes. It was 2.5 minutes. And he had quadruple bypass surgery. So that service is very vital to our community. I just wanted to let you know that. I appreciate you, Elmodel.
Councilmember Pittman.
Thank you. I appreciate, we get on, the topic here is a partnership with a fellow agency in our city. And I'd like to stay on that. I'd also like to stay on the topic that with the Elmodale being in a joint powers agreement, it also would be the next step to annexation of the entire district of Elmodale, which I think would be a great idea. And if we're doing the fire provision, whatever, whether it's City of Oroville or CAL FIRE, we have a JPA, we could make it work in both ways. I think it's just a matter of giving it to staff and say, there's a policy direction, here's your revenue stream, what would you guys suggest? That's what I'm looking at tonight, just to see what we can do, because you folks that live in Elmodale, you voted for this revenue to provide the fire service. So it's just a matter of us getting everybody together and making sure you're all getting it, and this entire city's getting it. That's the real thing. And I look forward to this as a great new future annexation, and to be a little, well, one of the problems are our city of Oroville has a great first-time homebuyer program. And believe it or not, we're out of inventory. We have more people to apply for the first-time homebuyer program than we can possibly fill.
We'd like to stay on topic.
I am staying on topic. If we annexed eventually South Oroville, we would have a brand-new inventory for a first-time homebuyer program. And it'd be a benefit to all, not just the fire service in topic. So that's why I'm supporting this whole concept here. And there's details in the letter. That's what staff should work on. And I would like staff, everybody, to work on it, whoever staff sees fit to bring it back to us for a comprehensive, great idea. I'm sure they do it. I know they're all capable of doing that.
Councilmember Hatley.
Thank you. I remember when South Oroville got annexed into the city, and there were some council people that weren't for that annexation because we had just lost all of our RDA funding. When Southside should have been annexed was back when we had RDA funding. We would have been able to do some things, but at the time, the council that set up here decided that it was time. They said it was the right thing to do, and they annexed South Oroville. Now, with the loss of revenue from the RDA, we didn't have any funds, and then we went through some pretty hard times. But now we're back, and we're doing a lot better, thanks to a lot of good, sound financial direction from our finance director and the council following that direction. We annexed South Oroville because we wanted you with us. Well, when you do that, then you take on, it's just like adopting. You take on all the responsibility that goes with that. And to me, we need to fulfill our obligation. We made it, let's stand by it. You come into this world with nothing but your word, and that's exactly all you'll leave with. So we gave our word when we annexed the South Oroville that we were going to stand with you and make you one of us. And that's what we need to do. So we need to look at this agreement. I'm not saying that everything in it can be agreed upon, but it's somewhere to start in a negotiation. And that's where we'd better do to let everybody know, because if we plan on future annexations, the people are going to be looking at this and they're going to say, well, if you told them, but you didn't do it, what makes me think you'll do it for me? So, you know, our word is everything, and we better live by it. So I hope the council approves to look at this and get staff working on it and see if we can come to something that's agreeable.
Councilmember Riggs.
Mr. Mayor, Councilperson Riggs, if it's okay, can we hold your comment and do the public comment now, get that input, that way you can formulate your thoughts, and then we'll close the item to the public, and then.
That's fine by me.
All right, thank you, ma'am. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Mayor, there's 5 public speakers. The first one is Stephanie Irish, and then Mike Brown.
Good evening again. I just wanted to point out that we're missing a lot of facts in this whole agreement thing. It's hearsay. It's hearsay by people that have specific personal interest in it. I'm reading here online about someone praising Oroville Fire Department for their amazing response times in Southside, and one of those people are here. So I'm confused. When you were fighting for them, they were amazing. So now you're fighting for them, and Oroville's not amazing. So that kind of confuses me. But my questions are this. Were any Elmodale response times or responses missed in the last few years? Did anybody suffer from them missing it? And another question is, has Elmodale being closed for almost a year, has anybody suffered from that, or has CAL FIRE and OFD taken right over and been there for them? Since they have closed, my tax dollars, I am in that district, so I do have a dog in this show. So my tax dollars have been paid to them for almost an entire year with zero services. And has anyone been in jeopardy from the takeover of Oroville Fire, CAL FIRE? And have there been any formal complaints against Elmodale? Does this agreement jeopardize the contract with CAL FIRE and OFD in any way? Because I have a feeling there's a personal agenda. Also, I would like to, let me speak on this. Let me see here. Oh, it was about the calls. I'm confused. I am confused about, these are all the same players in the game fighting for Elmodale as well. I'm not down on firefighters. I'm not 100%. I support them. I do not support calling 911 and someone showing up who is not properly trained, period. And there could be hearsay, there can be back and forth, there could be, I got this, I got that. There should be documentation, people should be seeing it, and it should be legitimate. You go to the fire academy, we want to see that, because if my family's in a car wreck, I don't want them showing up. I think that probably goes for a lot of people. I want trained people, and I know that on the end of my 911 call, I'm going to get that right now. The worry is not everybody in South Oroville. I'm not in Southside, I'm in South Oroville. We do not all need Elmodale back. And I do want to know these response times.
Time.
Someone can help me.
Our next speaker is Mike Brown.
Thank you, Mayor Reynolds, Council. 100 years ago, it was very forward-looking for the Elmodale Fire District to be formed. You guys have done a remarkable job, but it was formed at a time when the city of Oroville was bound by the railroad
Excuse me,
tracks.
Mr. Brown, we need to maintain order.
When Oroville only went from here as far as the railroad tracks, south side was remote. Butte County did not yet provide fire protection. In fact, they took their cue from the people of South Oroville and started providing fire protection in 1931. Now, you fast forward to the future, you have to look at the fundamental reasons why a fire district exists. It's a special district to provide service where no other service is available in that realm. Well, the city has annexed the core of the Elmodale Fire District. The county has surrounded it. Each provide fire protection that I will say politely is at a depth greater than the Elmodale Fire District can because of its small size and declining revenue over time. It's not a fault of the district. It's a function of the times, and especially the times we live in. The last opportunity to vote, the public voted no more money for the Elmodale Fire District. My concern with the Joint Powers Agreement is the city will be seen as subsidizing a district that has functionally run its course. And it's not a fault of the district, it's just the times. I went through this in the town of Paradise when I worked there after they had went from a district to a town. I watched it in Walton Fire District as Yuba City annexed them. The years to get ahead of this were years past, 10, 15 years ago, when I had this conversation with Chief Oldhausen. The district wasn't interested. They're very politely and properly focused on the neighborhood, but not on the community as a whole. Nowadays, the city has an obligation to provide fire protection to the district. Where their tax dollars go, their property taxes, their Measure U taxes, the county provides fire protection all around based on property taxes, and our state taxes go to fund the state. The district, unfortunately, has become redundant. If the city funds the district in this relationship, it will appear like a gift, though not intended, a gift of public funds to a district that has run its course. And I don't begrudge them their opportunities to provide service. I worked side by side with them for years, and with you, Chief Pittman. And we did good work, but the time has passed, just the way the time passed in the Willits Fire Protection District where my grandfather worked, the Petaluma Fire Department, where my third great uncle helped organize that city and put himself out of business.
Time. Thank you. Our next speaker is Annie Terry.
I'd like to remind the public that I see blue cards being turned in after the item has started. The policy is that you need to have your blue cards in before we start speaking about the item, so we don't just keep adding to the conversation. You need to have your statements ready.
I just wanted to speak in support of Elmodale Fire Department and for it as a district. I think the right thing for the city to do is to negotiate. If you're not willing to negotiate, I think that's being closed-minded. I'm just saying. I really liked Dave Pittman's idea of that being a catalyst that could cause change in Southside. I think if there were more people able to buy a house on South Side under the first-time home buyers program, I think that's a great idea. Because home ownership makes you want to take care of your community. It really does. I just wanted to speak out in favor of Elmodale. My granddaughter had a medical call years ago. Everybody in South Side, and everybody has a story to tell about something good that happened. And there's always good stories and there's always bad stories. But you could knock on any door there in Southside and somebody could tell you a story about something happened. You know, one of my granddaughters had a situation where she got her finger stuck in a paper shredder, and it wasn't stuck to the point that her finger was going to be shredded, but to the point that she was a little scared 2-year-old. And they came along with crowbar and fixed her situation. And after then they all became her fighters, and she loved all the guys at Elmodale. And there's a lot to be said for shared history. There really is. And maybe I sound like a sap, but I think there's a lot of people on Southside that just want to keep their fire department. And I don't think it's just a few people that are coming here to these meetings and saying, well, we just want to keep this fire department because it's our own special interest. No, I think it's Southside's fire department. And I think there is a sense of community in Southside Oroville. And I don't think that sense of community died out as the buildings became shabbier and more of the houses were abandoned. I think there needs to be revitalization in Southside. And I think taking something away from the community is a negative, not a positive. So I just wanted to speak out and tell you what I think. So you can do what you want to with it. But I think at least there needs to be some negotiation.
Our next speaker is Kevin Thompson.
Hi. Well, thank you for the opportunity in this forum, in this space, and certainly how to rise just to speak on behalf and show my support for the Elmodel Fire Department. Off and on for the last 65 plus years, I've been a part of Southside, and I too have seen the response time. And I don't have all the jargon and the language that people come up with these statistics and so on and so forth. I can tell you what it's like when the rubber meets the road in our communities. They're the first ones always to show up on time, and normally they're the last ones to leave. Mind you, on and off for the past 65 years, I witnessed this. And when they wasn't responding to emergencies and fires and tragic situations in people's lives, they comfort the children in the old fire department with movies and Christmas candy bags and so on and so forth. And these are the memories I have of this great community. I would encourage you to really consider this JPA, just give it an opportunity. Don't just brush over it. In that, I would ask that you just come to some kind of agreement, set some kind of benchmarks for them, allow them to run, give them a 2 to 3 year performer, see how they perform in those 2 to 3 years. And if they don't meet the mark, if they don't measure up, then put a plug. But at least give these community members, these are our brothers and our sisters, our family. These are the people that we've known all our lives. I remember Mr. Pittman pulling hoses himself throughout the streets where we have 3 or 4 fires going on in the same day sometime. You remember that. So I would encourage you, and I would submit to you today, as a community member, as your colleagues, and as those that look up to you for leadership, please don't just push this over because we sit in the seat of power. But I would just encourage you today to please have compassion on Southside, on our community, and give it a chance. Read the proposal that was put before you today. And I pray, and I hope, and I pray, and that you all come and deliberate wisely and make the right decision on behalf of the Elmodel Fire Department District.
Our last speaker on this item is Frank Johnson.
The mayor and vice mayor and city councilor, you heard my name is Frank Johnson, and I'm asking everybody to take a good look at me because I'm everywhere. A few months back, it was a fire broke out in the back of my yard, and I called 911. And when Oroville Fire Department got there, they just kind of looked around. The fire was just going. And they didn't get out and do what they're supposed to do. And then Thanksgiving Eve, that Wednesday, the chief, after the lady came up and said, hey, it's a man laying out in the road. She didn't know he was dead or not. He wasn't moving. Me and the chief walked down there. Got down there, somebody else had done the call. I called. 3 calls went in. When I called, they say, oh, we got the call. We be there as soon as we can. I don't care if it's a drunker, a doper, or somebody done got their feet cut and they need assistance, get there. Ammodale Fire Department, they there when they was open. They were there. I seen them. They're there. But now when you got Oroville Fire Department and other departments coming in and taking their time, when I called for that fire in the back of my house, it took them a while to get there. I had my neighbors, other neighbors, grabbing hose, dragging across the street, my hose from my house. We trying to put out the fire while they, and then turn around, come to find out, oh, we ran out of water. I got a water, what you call that? Hydrant right there at my house. And they wouldn't hook up to finish, but they hook up to fill their truck up. And so we need Ammodale Fire Department on South Side.
Mr. Mayor, that is the last of the public speakers on this item.
Okay. I don't think anybody denigrates the any fire service district or their willingness to provide service or help, but ability is another thing. And It was about a year and a half ago. I was in Bill LaGrone's office, and Councilmember Pittman, Chief Tens, and our former chief of police came in. Had said that we had an issue with Elmodale. They asked if I wanted to go along, so the four of us went out there. Apparently, the issue was they had, what they said when we got there, we asked why they had not responded to 6 calls in a row. And they said that they slipped through them. Their ringer didn't work, the bell didn't work. We said, okay, well, you're responding, I believe, I don't know all the terms either, but it was first out or first in to calls in the city of Oroville, and we have a responsibility there. We would like to see your records of certification and qualification, or, you know, I'm personally wanting to know because I'm representing the city here. And they sat there in silence, looking around. And Chief Nystrom, when I asked him for his records, he said, what'd you say? You weren't sure where they were, or you couldn't locate them? You're sure they're around here somewhere?
The records were there in full, but several of them got destroyed by other personnel.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And I have
Either way, they were unavailable to the city. And so that's when, and the offer was there to help. It really was. Let's help build this thing as it is. Let's fix it. What I was told after we left, that I said, I wonder why they didn't respond. Why were they silent? And apparently because I don't wear a uniform, there was a unwillingness to speak. But what I was told by the people or some of the people that accompanied me was that they are their own district, and we don't have any authority out there.
Mm-hmm.
So guess what? I believed them. I really did. So they're their own district. You know what? But they're their own district who can't self-sustain themselves. So if you want to JPA with someone, I would recommend that your leadership, and Mr. Munch, you're a wonderful person, but the board needs to be the city council, not your own board. You cannot manage your district. I'm sorry. I've got comments from LAFCO encouraging you to dissolve. I've got elected officials that say that they have several complaints of you not operating and collecting tax dollars. I happen to know, I don't know why you're offering $600,000 when I've seen your books. You only collect $540,000. So I'm wondering where the extra money comes from. I heard something about renting equipment to CAL FIRE. I made a call. That's not a possibility. So I'm wondering where this is coming from. And we keep talking about fixing up Southside. I agree, absolutely. I do spend time over there, and I agree with you 100%. My parents used to live over there in the 50s, early 60s, excuse me. And the way to fix it up is to enhance the service. The description of a JPA is 2 agencies coming together to enhance service. I don't see any enhancement here, because what I see with the proposal that I read, it looked like we had all of the responsibility and none of the say-so, and which is completely accurate. Over 90% of your calls are medical. Who is qualified to respond to those? I don't know what you're going to do, because we actively recruit firefighters. This is a small area. I can tell you that between Oroville and CAL FIRE, anyone who's recruiting to work at a fire agency who is qualified is going to those agencies. We can't, this is not the old days where we worked at the grocery store, we worked laying brick, and the big bell went off on the levee, and we all ran and jumped on the truck. It's over. Because I'm going to tell you, there's something called liability. And as soon as we enter into one of these agreements with people that are not qualified, then we have accepted all of the liability. And everyone will be, when soon as the first casualty happens, everyone will be standing there saying, why did you make that decision? I can't believe you were so irresponsible. Where was their records? Where were their documents? How did you prove that they were qualified to do this work? So I, for one, I've been working on this for quite a while. Now, my plan was not to dissolve Elmodale, it was to help them. They refused help. So actually, Elmodale, Station 3, would not go away. My recommendation is that we have entered into a labor agreement with CAL FIRE. We cannot enter into another agreement with someone else at the same time. We need to see this through, finish what we've started, like I've heard it being said here. We need to finish what we started, and then these chiefs will provide service to that area like they are now. And I'll bring up another thing with your $540,000 income. You already owe the city of Oroville $250,000 for overtime dispatch and response that you haven't even commented on paying. You don't respond, excuse me, sir, that you have not responded. Chief Messina, how much do they owe CAL FIRE? $69,000 for 6 months, but it's been a year. So. Are we gonna stay on topic? Sir, you're out of order.
Sir, you're out of order. Let's stay on topic.
You're out of order.
Can you stay on topic?
You're out of order.
Fine,
And see,
I'll be
this
happy
is
to.
what, this is an excellent example of emotion running your decisions. So we have to be, excuse me, sir. Excuse me, keep order. Yes, please exit.
I'm sorry, people.
Is that everyone? So I know that we don't, the truth is not always as glorious as the idea. And, but the reality of it is we are moving forward. We are growing Southside, and Station 3 would be fully manned and fully occupied by qualified personnel if we move forward with our agreement with CAL FIRE. We were in here a few months ago saying that Oroville Fire Department was the best in the nation. I agree, they're right up there, absolutely. And I think that they can do a wonderful job with CAL FIRE to put together a staff that will fully, functionally provide service to the people. I do have a question for you, Chief Tens. This agreement says that you endorsed a fully functional fire department. Can I have your description of a fully functional fire department?
Well, I'd have to bring back a little bit of history, but when Elmodale was still functioning, we were supplementing a lot of their needs, which we were happy to do. But we were providing a duty chief or battalion chief to respond on incidents, and they didn't have a chief that was responding to calls at the time, so we were providing that. So some of those things like that, as far as prevention, administration, covering emergency calls with the chief officer wasn't there. And we do endorse a fully functioning department.
Is the existence of Elmodale Fire Department, as we see it, fully functional?
As of today, no.
Chief Messina, can you describe to me, you're also listed here, sir, that you endorsed a fully functional fire department. Can you explain to me what in your eyes, as a professional,
I came
what a
as an
fully...
observer, but I will answer that question. So typically, a fully functioning fire department, as if you remember in previous presentations, the total totality of fire service, administration, training, fire marshal duties, and emergency response. That combined is a fully functioning. Understanding that dispatch services are complex, and a lot of people enter into agreements for dispatch services because that consolidation is efficient and effective. Those are basically the functions of a fully functioning fire department, and they don't necessarily need to rely on outside agencies to maintain them.
Okay, so actually, you did not endorse this JPA. What you endorsed, which I understand, I would endorse that as well, would be a fully functional.
Absolutely, and we've met with Elmodale multiple times to discuss it, and they've heard me say that multiple times. I haven't spent much time reviewing this JPA proposal just from the fact that I wasn't aware. I aware there was some talk of it, but I just saw it in the agenda packet recently, and I have not had really a lot of time to digest it.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Riggs.
Thank you. I believe I have a fairly good memory, and I just want to make sure that I'm recalling properly that when we first discussed the CAL FIRE agreement, one of the first proposals included staffing at the Elmodale department with medical responders. Have I lost my mind, or is that accurate?
No, the first proposal did include the Elmodale Station 3.
And the response from Elmodale at that time was?
They were not interested.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to make sure I had that right. And then in regards to Councilmember Hatley's comments about adopting a district as our own, which I totally agree with that sentiment. I just want to ensure and clarify that at this time, our department is adopting that district as its own within all reasonable expectation.
Our fire department, along with CAL FIRES, have split the district and are providing service to the entire district.
Okay, thank you. And I would agree that in the midst of restructuring our own department, creating our own contract to improve services, that we need to care for our immediate needs first, iron those details out, and then from there be able to expand and better serve districts that are not technically our own district. Although ensuring that proper coverage for that district is still occurring would also be a value of mine. Thank you.
Councilmember Pittman.
Thank you. And I think this discussion, we've heard all the discussions, and I think this is a worthy topic for the staff to work on and to include all the thoughts and presentations here. So that's again why I think this needs to be brought back to staff and to utilize and come back with a great agreement. I would include, I'm saying staff, and you probably think I'm just talking about city staff, but I would include Mr. Messina, CAL FIRE. They should be a part of that staff discussion too. As it was a proposal to operate Station 3, I'm sure that proposal could be worked on and something put together. The comment about gift of public funds, funding the fire service is a fickle animal. We already have a Melrose Rouge Community Facilities District in the city, and that's for 4 subdivisions out by the airport. And that's a separate revenue generator for public safety. I don't look at that as gift of public funds. When we're utilizing funds for a specific purpose, those people are paying for. And the same thing here with Elmodale. This is a specific purpose that the community of Elmodale voted for and are paying currently. Partnerships is real interesting because most of the partnerships that we have in the city, they're not bringing money to the table, folks. This partnership is bringing $600,000 to the table, or whatever they have. That's a different kind of partnership. They're bringing it to the table, and I thank the board members for proposing that. And I agree also, any fire chief would support a fully functioning fire department. I don't know that they endorsed it, they just made mention of the local chiefs in the area that would certainly like to see any fire department fully functioning. That's a worthy comment, and I can't believe any fire chief wouldn't make that statement. I think it's misconstruing that it was endorsed by this letter. Again, this letter is just talking points. That's all it is, folks, is talking points, and it would be something that could be talked about, and then if the CAL FIRE project goes through, then this is a good point in time to put it together. Let's not delay it. Let's get the service going. And yes, there's bills to pay. Maybe that's the first step in the JPA. Pay the bills to the agencies that have provided the service. That's all talk about this negotiation. So it's only sensible to move it forward. There's a lot of misstatements been made here earlier. I won't comment on them all because it will be here the rest of the night. So I just move forward to this. There's another speaker.
Councilmember Smith.
Yeah, appreciate that, Mr. Mayor. I know this is a very difficult topic. It's obviously created challenges in our personal relationships. When you use anecdotal stories about lack of service, my son was COVID positive. We spent the night in the parking lot at the hospital the other night with him very dehydrated. I was very fearful for his life. He wasn't seen by the hospital till 2 o'clock the next day. So now City Council, being on City Council, obviously didn't do me much good at that point. Everyone's treated the same. And I don't know what's going on in the hospital and their workload and just the challenges that they're dealing with. So sometimes we just don't know fully, but we all have anecdotal stories that we can bring to the table and try to drill home a point. If there is a problem there and there is disparity, then we have a big problem, and I'd want to know about that. And that's a big deal. That becomes criminal, in my opinion. But I'm always careful with, anecdotal stories. I have my own about Elmodel, for an example. When I first came to this town, I did a Christmas in July in Southside. I bought a building. I gave thousands of dollars in toys to the children of Southside, fed them, brought food up from the Bay Area. I was working very hard, cleaned up a building there and fixed it up. I was providing services and outreach services. And one early morning, a homeless person broke through my front glass door and fell in there dead. That Friday afternoon, I was bringing up a load of bread to Southside to give away to the folks. And there were people running in and out of my building. And of course, the gentleman that had deceased was gone, but the yellow tape was there, and paramedic gloves and paraphernalia was lying around. And of course, some of the folks that knew me, they come up and started sharing the story, and Elmodel had showed up. Okay. I have my information on the plate glass, and this was during your service time. My contact, Pastor so-and-so, I had no phone call from Elmodel, nothing. And so I called, and I've donated toys, and I'd still continue to help out. But just since we're on anecdotal stories, and I'm going someplace with this, I was told we have no budget. Now, this is back in 2000s. We couldn't board up your building. I said, well, gosh, how about 25 cents? Back then it was a quarter, and there were still payphones. How about just a courtesy call to let me know my building was unsecured? So I had a very different early on encounter with Elmodale Fire Department. Now, did I continue to give? Absolutely. Thought your programs and the feeding and the turkey day and the Christmases were wonderful things. But the point is that Elmodale and much of Southside has been challenged for a very long time. And at some point, change is hard, but growth demands it, as the old cliche goes. And at some point, we reach our service life, and change happens. And so the question is, are we there? Are we there yet? Pastor Thompson mentioned maybe they need a couple of more years to see if they can get this thing turned around and then pull the plug. And I would just put forth, maybe we've been there a while, and it's just hard because of relationships, the community, all the intertwined, it's difficult. This is a very painful moment. But just my own personal anecdotal experience was very disappointing, very frustrating. To say the least. So I guess, again, as a responsible part of this council, and trying to make a wise decision, I even think about the special district, about the fact that over in south part of Oroville, they pay a higher tax for a service they're not receiving. And I think that's criminal. I have an issue as a person that serviced for many years the underprivileged and the homeless, and I was involved in that industry for many, many years. I have an issue with us charging higher rate of tax and receiving less service. I'm offended by that, to be quite frank, personally, on a personal level. And I feel that the entire city, again, when one rises or one floats, that service needs to be universal. I think that tax should be rescinded. I think it's horrible. But, and then so we come back, well, hey, they're coming with 600,000, 540,000, depending on how you're counting that. I'd be good with, we just need to take responsibility. I agree. Oroville, we have a responsibility. We annexed that part of the city. We have a tremendous responsibility to ensure the health and safety and welfare of that community. And so as we're in this season of flux with the CAL FIRE agreement, it's a difficult time. But for me, I'd like to see that process. I think CAL FIRE certainly needs to have a voice into this arrangement. This is a difficult moment. But I do wonder. If that life cycle, if we're there, and this is just a painful moment in time where we're having to make difficult decisions. I know some of you have said, and you won't survive this politically, Smith. And maybe not, but my motive purely, honestly, is for the best of Southside, for the folks that live there, to see that community turn around. I came to Oroville with a purpose of helping Southside and turning that community around. It's partly why I came here, honestly. So I don't think I can be accused of not being concerned. But how to get there, all of these very difficult, complex issues, some of them, when it comes to fire service, emergency services, honestly, above my pay grade. But we all know when somebody isn't getting the service that they deserve. And then the training, when I look at, again, going back to the CAL FIRE, what do they bring to the table? They bring simpatico service. They bring, an equality. They bring that command and control structure and all of that. And I think even, Steve, you've talked about that at the long run, it would be appropriate for Elmodale at some point to be absorbed into the city. In fact, LAFCO and annexations actually demand that. At some point, that will happen. It is an inevitability. The question is, are we at that moment? Are we here? I think we are. Maybe I won't get reelected, Mr. Pittman. Maybe I won't. But but coming from my heart, my interest is in what's best for the community, what's best for the fire service. I think you all do a valiant job. We're all appreciative. I don't think that's casting disparity. I didn't even really want to share that story, but I think it kind of bookends the stories, right? And just so and again, it's been challenged for a long time. This isn't just in the last couple of years. There have been challenges there a long, long time. You're underfunded. The task that you have is almost impossible with the funding that you have and the requirements and the level of service that is expected. It's an impossibility. So how can we best manage that and bring the level of service that Southside deserves in the day? That ultimately is my goal, and I'd like to see that achieved. And this is we all have different ideas about what that looks like. We do get our emotions involved, agreed. But at the end of the day, I just want this community to know, coming from this city council person, that's my end game. That's the goal, the objective. And processing all this information from Chief Pittman, retired Chief Pittman, and others, and just digesting all of that data and turning the corner as a community and offering, at the end of the day, a quality, professional, well-trained, well-groomed emergency services to the entire city of Oroville It absolutely should be every person on this diocese objective. And I think it is. We just have some different ideas about how to get there. We have the history. Just one more final point. We have a museum down the street at Pioneer Museum, bottom floor. There's the original, I think it's the original fire apparatus for Oroville. And do you know what the motor was? A horse. We don't.
About the hose cart, that's ours.
Yeah.
Yeah, and do you? Okay. And so I guess the point is the way that we approach fire service is so different today. Or, the complexities of emergency services and the expectations that we have when somebody shows up with equipment and all of that. I mean, and the bar just gets higher. It gets more and more challenging all the time, the level of training and all of that. And so I want to know when I dial 911 one day, that the best, well-trained professional is going to show up in an expedited way and ready to render, whatever aid is needed. And again, I have to admit, it's been very straining on personal relationships, and others. But I just want you to know that is where I'm going with this. That's the objective, and it's just painful, but we'll get there, or I'll maybe not get reelected.
Thank
Anyway.
you. We've all got our Ammodale stories, and it was probably around 10 years ago that I was called by a board member who asked if I would be involved in building a monument for Elmodale. And I said, absolutely. I knew her from Rotary. She was a friend. And I said, absolutely, I'd love to get involved. And I went over there and I built a monument in front with all of the recognized people in the bricks. And it cost me $10,000. I donated $10,000 to Elmodale, wholeheartedly, absolutely happy to. But another board member didn't like her recruiting me. So the Elmodale firefighters went out there and tore this monument down. I was surprised at that. I really was. It has nothing to do with, but my responsibility is to the city, all of it, and all of the citizens. It's been brought up here. Absolutely. That's why the city fire department and the Cal Fire Department, whom we've are entering into contract with, have responded to that area. We're concerned, 100%. No one is. We're just moving forward, as Councilmember Smith had said. There's, as Chief Nystrom had said, they have a horse-drawn wagon down there. We don't use those anymore. We have different technology. We've, like I said, it's not all volunteers where we hear the bell and we all assemble. It's all about training and liability. Liability. The city cannot take on liability of entering into an agreement with people who are not qualified to hold up their end. And I'm not pointing anybody out personally. I'm just going off the experts. So with that, I'm going to make a motion that we decline the JPA for Elmodale Fire Department.
May I speak?
Under the question, I would think so.
Yes.
Throwing rocks at each other hasn't accomplished a thing. I was at that meeting that you came to at the Ammodale station. We explained why our radio wasn't working. We had a glitch in the system that we fixed. I can rebut about everything you said, Mayor Reynolds, but I see no benefit in it. I hear Smith saying you're underfunded.
Mr. Monk,
Yeah,
I'm
we're-
sorry, could you come to the microphone?
Sure.
People can't, we can't record it or it can't be heard.
Okay.
on
Thank you, sir.
broadcast. Thank you, sir, I'm sorry.
Statements were made, we can't keep up our service because we're underfunded. That's exactly why I'm here. I'm underfunded. We're asking for your help to sustain. Help us in our training, help us get our feet back on the ground is all we're asking. Okay, I don't want to throw rocks at you guys. I don't want to be that bad image to no one. I just think that we could have some kind of a workable agreement. We have assets that we can share, and it would be providing a great service to South Oroville. And I can tell you right now, the taxpayers are going to look at that. Mr. Smith, you said, hey, could come down to election. You're absolutely right. You hit it on a nail. And people in South Oroville are going to look at this, and they're going to say, wow, who decided not to help Elmodale after 100 years of their service?
I think we've all been helping him at
And I can
Elmodale,
plead,
sir.
and now I know where you're standing. Tomorrow is our board meeting, and I'll pass the news on to the board, and we'll be looking at Steve Lucas, and we'll shut the district down. But I do thank you for your consideration in this matter.
Thank you.
Sorry it didn't work out.
Thank you.
Motion carries with 4 yeses and 3 nos.
Okay.
That, we are moving on to reports, discussions, correspondence, council announcements, and reports, please. Councilmember Riggs.
Hi, I have such great news about the holidays. First, I want to thank city staff and the mayor for participation in the tree lighting. And it was a very lovely event. Thank you to all council members that attended. And then I just wanted to, on behalf of the Downtown Business Association, remind everybody that the light parade, the real one, is this Saturday. And at current, we have 57 entries and expect a handful more. So we are very excited for that. And we're working with our Oroville historians to be the grand marshal for that event and carry forward our history as part of the light parade. So that is this Saturday, and we are excited for that event and excited to bring a little bit of joy to our community this holiday season. That's all.
Thank you. I attended that, and what a great event. Excuse me. I don't have COVID. What a magical time to see the town drawn together and to look out over that crowd and see all of the happy faces. I mean, all of the steps, the tree area down Myers to Montgomery was all full of people. The parking lot over there was full. It was just absolutely amazing. And we even had snow with the 2 snow machines. So absolutely wonderful. And thank you, Oroville Downtown Business Association. And it was a wonderful experience. Vice Mayor Thompson.
Thank you. Just really, I think our town's blessed to have this. I'm really blown away and blessed. Just a little factoid about Harlan. I think it was Justice Harlan. I'm not sure exactly his title, but back during the evil of segregation, when a matter was brought to the Supreme Court regarding whether or not states could segregate based on color, this chief was the only one who was dissenting against segregation. So he stood against all the others who said states could segregate, and he said that is absolutely against their constitutionally protected rights. So I'm proud that Oroville shares in the heritage of this chief who stood for unity, who stood for human rights, who stood for constitutional rights, and it is an absolute honor for us to have this. One thing I would love to just suggest, and maybe this council can consider, is just as the Supreme Court, that every justice, the justice, right, who sat on the Supreme Court, every justice who then sits in Supreme Court signs their Harlan Bible, I would love to suggest that those who wish, who are city council members here on out, could also add their signature into this book as a part of the tradition of what they do. Does that make sense?
It does
So
to me.
I would love to suggest that. That's the city's, yeah.
I would say that shadow closet.
So is there a second on signatures? Anybody open to that? Am I the only one that's interested?
I'll second that. Absolutely, I'd love to.
Your
sign it.
statement
What
was
an
you would
honor.
love to suggest it. Are you suggesting it?
I'm suggesting it.
Okay, just want clarity.
Great, that's all I have.
Councilmember Pittman.
Yeah, I attended the Oroville Dam Safety Committee meeting last Friday on the 3rd, and some of the things that you may know about but were talked about in great discussion were the zero water deliveries will occur so far at this point to the rest of the state water contractor agencies. They've never had to make that kind of comment or report. They've been down to 5% or 10%, but this is the first year they've had a zero water deliveries. And you might think, well, is any water going any south at all? Well, yes, they do have a new component for health and safety reasons, and it's based upon 50 gallons per capita per day per individual. So there will be some deliveries for health and safety reasons, but that's it. That's pretty much the way it is at today's discussion. There's also a continuing work on the commission's report. Timeline is in process. The first of the 3 steps was completed just this month, and the final report will be put together for the last 4th quarter of 2022. And then the other thing there was going on, the update on the new road constructions going on top of the spillway. There's a new road being built from the parking lot prior to the spillway down below, and then it'll give access to the spillway ramps and spillway parking area. It's quite a project, and it's a huge addition. I'm not sure why, but anyway, they're doing it. And that's essentially it. There's going to be some more up-and-coming conversations asked by the rest of the commissioners. One was the idea of an additional water flow outlet between the powerhouse and before it hits the bottom of the spillway. There's no a way to increase the outflow for flood reservation control. And so there's a request to have the staff look at some way to do that, whether it's another powerhouse or replumbing, something along those lines, because once it is exited through the powerhouse, that has to be done when the generators are operating. If the generators are operating, they have to cut their flow. So there's a plumbing problem, what I call it. It's just a simple plumbing problem. It's just 5-foot diameter valves that aren't plumbed right. So there's an interest in finding a different way to control the rate of rise in the pool, which is another topic going on. But it's a very interesting meeting, well attended by all the folks that are on that committee. So just to report out from that.
Councilman Pittman, can I just have a couple follow-up questions on that?
Sure.
I don't know if they included this information or not, or if you have it. I was, listening to what you were reporting, and my understanding from what you have reported back is that there will be no domestic water deliveries. Does that mean, is there going to be agricultural water deliveries?
No.
So what are our farmers going to do?
Good question.
I mean, that's going to be a real significant impact on our area.
Well, not just our area, but all the 31 state water contract agencies that are buying that water. In fact, at this point, Oroville Reservoir is not supplying any water south of the Delta. All the water is being supplied by San Luis Reservoir.
So is any of the water being sent to the Delta for saline dilution?
That's the only place Lake Oroville water's going.
Okay. Thank you, sir. I was just,
Yeah.
it's they never did say what that meant to our agricultural community.
Yeah, there's other water contracts and purveyors and water rights that goes on. It's very complicated, but the big ticket in the room is the reservoir storage at Lake Oroville providing water to the rest of the state and the state water contractors that are looking for that water. So, let's pray for rain.
Yes,
best thing to do.
Thank you, sir.
Mm-hmm.
Does anyone else have any comments? Having none, looking for future agenda items?
I'd like to bring up an issue.
Councilmember Pittman.
Thank you. With the shoplifting thefts that are going on, is there any possibility a city by ordinance can increase the penalty for that? I don't know a business that isn't having a problem with this. I know the state law changed on the issue, but is there a way a city ordinance can stand up and add additional penalty to that process?
So, Councilmember Pittman, I'll take a look at it. What you have just identified is actually a difficult question. The reason why is the city is typically not in the business of prosecuting criminal violations. And the district attorney is typically not in the position of prosecuting city ordinances. We can certainly have that discussion. I'll do some research. It is an interesting idea. Typically, and I'll just say this, just generally speaking, typically the courts have ruled that the state has occupied the field related to criminal violations. But it's an interesting question. Let me do some analysis on it.
Thank you. I appreciate it because our business community would certainly like to have some additional leverage in the issue. Thank you.
I'll do some research.
Councilmember Riggs.
Thank you. Thank you. I just wanted to ensure that my comment earlier about Mr. Huber looking into the SBF is listed. Okay, thank you. And then I spoke with Mr. Legrone earlier this morning about lighting and security, specifically around the Lot Home, but our other parks as well. Since we had that informal discussion and I asked him to look into some opportunity to improve lighting, I wanted to also put that as a formal item, especially as we continue to have issues of vandalism within our parks. I'll keep to those two things today.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Anyone else? Administration report. Oh, Councilmember Smith.
Yeah, and I just wanted to clarify a comment I made earlier about my own experience with trash service. Just wanted to be clear. I wasn't casting disparity on Recology. I actually appreciate the service. I just wanted to clarify that because I'm sitting here digesting what I said. And my intentions here are to seek enhanced services, and I even shared it. It might cost us an extra $1 or so if we could get some of those large item removals, but I just wanted to clarify that because it wasn't meant to be in any way casting disparity on the Recology. I think they do a wonderful service for the most part. So anyway, thank you.
Okay, administration, I'm sorry, sir.
That was offered.
This is for the council members, but you can present your idea with staff.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
I just wasn't sure of the process.
Sure, absolutely. Administration reports, Mr. Legrone.
Mr. Mayor, I just have a question for the council. There's been some, I've been approached by some council members that are not, I shouldn't say are not, are interested in not having the meeting on the 21st. I need to know from the council if you're interested in having that meeting or just canceling that meeting until the first meeting in January. It's completely a council decision. I didn't want to.
For me, that would depend on what you foresee being on that agenda. Is there something pressing that must be on that that you think should be addressed at that time?
As I've talked to staff, I don't believe that we have anything pressing. We will have an item that we will be adding to an agenda that is just time sensitive. That'll be next Thursday that we have to add. But other than that, we don't have anything pressing.
I would be in agreement to not have the meeting. That's pretty close to Christmas and a lot of people would like to go away. What's the consensus of this council?
I'm on board with that. Is there something absolutely?
If something comes up, we will certainly get hold of the council. And as it sits right now, talking with staff, there is nothing that I'm aware of that is that time sensitive that the meeting absolutely has to occur.
Well, don't jinx it.
Yeah.
I think that's it.
So I think I'm seeing enough
consensus
council members that are.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So we will cancel the 21st meeting. The next meeting will be on, I believe it's January 4th of 2022. the next regularly scheduled council meeting.
See you next year. January 4th, you said?
I think so.
Okay.
I don't know off the top of my head, I'm making that up.
Jackie? You know, is it 4th? Okay.
Pretty good.
Are you done?
I only had 31 choices.
Chief Tans?
Yeah, thank you. So 2 things to report. 3 new hires are finishing up the recruitment process. So I'm hoping by next council meeting in January, I can bring them here and introduce them to you guys. I'm excited about that. And then also the Type 6 engine has been ordered. And hopefully within a year, I can bring some pictures and show you guys.
Thank you.
That's it.
Mr. Huber? Nothing?
Nothing to add, sir.
Dawn?
The traffic signal cabinet at Table Mountain and Grand has been received and replaced today.
I have nothing.
Okay, with that, we will adjourn to January 4th, 2022 at 4 PM. Meeting adjourned.